Good morning and welcome to Church at Home for this Friday, the 24th of September. Today is an important day in my life because it is my 16th wedding anniversary. And this day always gives me opportunity to reflect and think about who I am and where I've come and where I'm going and the person with whom God has given me the gracious gift of traveling, my husband Rob. For some of you who know me, you'll know that Rob was the only person in my life. I was 32 when I met him, and we got married when I was 34. Yes, 34. On a beautiful September day, 16 years ago today. The sun was shining. We got married at a place called Elam, East London Anglican Ministries, in the Sanctuary of the Ascension. I believe that was the name of the church part of the building. And we had an old-fashioned coffee hour for a greeting, and then we had a dance and dinner afterward for our close friends and families, and it was a beautiful day. Lots of hiccups. No wedding is perfect. If I go back and do things differently, I probably would, a few things. But in retrospect, it really was a beautiful day. But what was most beautiful about it was how we got there. I think, well, maybe not even so much how we got there as how I got there. I was fortunate because God was long-suffering with me and very patient. And although we all have free will, God exercised a lot of detours in my life. And I was fortunate because I didn't end up with people, boyfriends and situations where I was caught, where I would have to make difficult decisions that would take me off the path that I was called to be on. I was a priest when I met Rob, and I was serving in Stratford and Mitchell in Ontario and doing good work with the parish, but also a lot of involvement with things like homelessness and young women and teenagers at risk of homelessness and unwanted pregnancies, and how do you help girls who need to have a place to go, a place of safety and shelter. So I was involved in a lot of things that helped to form me as the person that I am. And I was blessed because although it was a lonely teenagehood and young womanhood, not having dates to the prom or someone to go with me for a +1 for weddings and things like that, it taught me how to be independent, and it taught me to really believe in and trust in God's love first and foremost. I have been, because of, I think, the fact that I had to wait so long to meet the person that I would commit my life with, I had the opportunity to really learn what it is to rely on God. I remember when I was probably 3 years ordained, so about 2002 or 2003, there was a lovely older British couple in my congregation in Mitchell, John and Doreen. And I got a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning from the OPP, the Ontario Provincial Police, because Doreen had died. And they didn't have any children. And so John asked them to call me. He didn't want me to come and see them, but they wanted me to check in and make sure that John was going to be okay the next day. It was a Saturday night that they called, and Sunday morning I got to church, and there was John. He never came to church. He used to drop Doreen off, and she'd sit third pew from the front, in front of the pulpit, but he never came into church. But there he was that day. And from then on, we had wonderful conversations, and I got to see him several times before he died as well. And I was given the gift that night of knowing that I was not alone. I was angry that night when I got that phone call because I wanted a spouse. I wanted someone who could pick up the pieces for me, someone who could tell me it was going to be all be okay, that I would have the strength to deal with the loss of a beautiful, beautiful friend and a real quiet but strong pillar of our church community. And I didn't have that. And so I asked God, I said, I need help. I need to know you are present. And it was immediately as if I felt the arms of Christ around me. I'm going to move the computer there. There we go. It was as if I felt the arms of Christ around me and holding me so tight I could barely breathe. I fell asleep that way, and just before I fell asleep, I had to ask God to let go of me a little bit because you were holding me so tight. And that allowed me the gift of knowing how important our relationship with God, with Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit is, prior to us being able to have any kind of successful relationship with any other human being. The way we understand our relationships with others needs to grow out of our relationship with God. It is through God that we learn how to love selflessly. It is through God that we learn how to forgive and to ask for forgiveness. It is through our love for God that we learn what it is to come back again and again, and to recognize that our safe place needs to be where we are loved and where we can love unconditionally. And that has to begin with God. You cannot have a solid relationship with your spouse as a Christian if you do not have that solid relationship with God. With God's love is perfect. God's love is all consuming. God's love is always present. And as human beings, we can't do that. We aren't always loving. We aren't always present to the other person. We aren't always unselfish. But if we steep ourselves in God's love, and we steep ourselves in learning how to love from the divine himself, then we bring with us into relationships those lessons and that peace and that understanding of what it will take when, he makes dinner and leaves a complete mess in the kitchen and you just have to, really, he had to use every pot tonight. Or when you have left the gas gauge on empty and he gets in the car in the morning and that's the last thing he wants to do when he's running late is running at gas. Or when you have disagreements about how to raise children or what to do with your finances or what happens when someone you love has died. Rob and I have been through a lot in 16 years. Many, many deployments, many times when he was away on courses, a few times when I was off on training for something. He has moved months ahead of me to go to a new posting, and while I came afterward, we have lived in places where we weren't sure we were going to live for very long. We have lost all kinds of things in moves, and things that we have loved have been broken by the movers and unable to replace them. We have had our ups and downs, our scares. We've also had our joys. We've lost his parents. I've lost an uncle and 2 cousins since he has been in my life. And I know definitively that we would not have been able to deal with these things, these losses, or even these celebrations, if it hadn't been for one another, but more importantly, if it hadn't been for our relationship with Christ before we even met one another. That relationship that we form as we are learning how to be in relationship with others, that divine human relationship that we learn, that we cut our teeth on, is the most important formation for the relationship we can have with our spouse or with our children, with our friends, with our grandchildren. So I encourage you to foster that relationship you have with God through Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. Take some time every day to be quiet and listen and talk and ask questions and listen for answers, to be present to how God is growing you and growing your relationship with him. Because when your relationship with God is the strongest, that is when you will find your relationships with others are the strongest. So to all of you, I wish you a happy anniversary, because this day, every day, is yet another day to celebrate your relationship with God. Whether it started at baptism as a child, or maybe later in life, or maybe you broke up with God for a while and came back, or maybe you're not back yet, or haven't found him yet. I do encourage you to seek out a relationship with Christ, with God, through Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, because there is something very powerful and life-giving that then gives life to every other relationship in your world. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the relationships you have. Give thanks to God for those you love. And I will see you again on Monday for Church at Home with Rachael, or if you wish to join me on Sunday afternoon for mini church as we recognize Orange Shirt Sunday and who we are as Christians and how we as Christian Canadians walk forward together with our Indigenous brothers and sisters and siblings. God bless everybody. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you later.